time, but we really appreciate so many of you logging on to join us. We are going to talk a lot about social emotional learning in our classrooms and Urbandale Preschool, and talk a little bit more about what PBIS looks like in the home. So welcome. Hopefully you're able to go ahead and mute yourself in case there's extra background noise. I'm not hearing any, so that's a good sign. And we'll go ahead and just get started with our presentation. There might also be some pictures from different classrooms. We've just randomly grabbed some photos so you can see some of the great work that's happening in different buildings around the district. So again, thank you for coming. And I'm Brianna Sayre-Geiser with Heartland AEA. The purpose of this night is really to help teach you what's going on in the classroom with PBIS and get some common language, using the same terms at home, and giving you some really simple ideas of ways that you can support this learning at home as well. And at the end, there will be a final slide that has resources available for different topics that you can access on your own time. All of our teachers, I believe, are joining us tonight as well. So if you do happen to have questions that you want to answer after tonight, maybe you think about it later or over the weekend, please feel free to reach out to any of your teachers or Ashley or myself, but we will try and allow a little bit of time for questions at the end, and you can put any of your questions in the chat. We'll have some of the teachers helping to monitor that chat with the questions. If you can, please mute, and then the presentation will be recorded. So just so that you know, we're going to be able to share this with other families that maybe weren't able to participate with us in person tonight. So what we'll be talking about is kind of the areas of development, but what we're going to really be focusing a lot on tonight is our social emotional learning. So as you know, in preschool, our students are learning things about their physical development, lots of language and literacy, and then math and their cognitive skills. But tonight, where we're going to talk more about is that social emotional learning. And as you see here, there's a visual of a pyramid, and this is what we call the pyramid model practices, or also commonly known as early childhood PBIS. So it kind of starts with that foundation of an effective workforce that we've been building with our leadership team and working together through professional development. Then we move into some nurturing and responsive relationships and those high quality supportive environments. Then we have specific social skills that we teach to all of our children. And then if there does happen to be persistent and challenging behavior, there's systems in place for that as well. But we really want to see that balance, right, between our academic skills, the literacy, mathematics, cognitive skills, and the social emotional learning as well. And that's where a lot of this PBIS work comes into play. Here again is a link to more information about this pyramid model. It kind of gets a little bit confusing because it's the pyramid model, but we also call it early childhood PBIS. So I just want to kind of frame that up so that you understand when we use those terms, sometimes we're talking about the same thing. There is a link here for resources, but you'll see a lot more at the end of the presentation tonight. So when we think about that social emotional learning, we want to think about some things like, does our child manage their emotions and their behaviors? Are they able to recognize their own emotions or emotions in others as well? Can they make some good personal choices or do some problem solving skills? Can they form positive relationships? That can be with the adults in their lives, that can be with peers also. And can they deal positively with conflict? So if problems do arise in the classroom or on the playground, or maybe even within the neighborhood, can they have those skills to be able to resolve those conflicts? And then the final kind of skill that we look at a little bit is that idea of showing empathy. We don't necessarily teach a lot of this showing empathy. We might model some of those practices because actually that empathy skill doesn't really come out until kids are a little bit older, about 6 or 7 or so, but it is part of the social emotional learning that we do still model and emphasize in our classrooms. lots of words on this particular slide, so I just want to kind of paraphrase for you, but some people may be asking, what is PBIS? And I just wanted to kind of give you a brief definition of early childhood positive behavior interventions and supports. It's a problem-solving process. It's research-based. It involves teachers, families, caregivers, and to really create learning environments that support that social emotional development. And why is it so important? I think the very first sentence kind of explains it, and the very last sentence, right? The single most predictive element for future academic success is that strong executive function. And then it's essential to also prepare our children to be ready to learn in kindergarten. So if we have lots of great academic skills, but we don't have those social emotional skills in place, then sometimes our children might struggle when they move on to kindergarten or first grade. So it's really important that we can find that balance and still teach both of those skills in our classrooms. So what's the main goal behind all of this work? It's really to create that environment where every child feels good about coming to school. And we kind of emphasize that every child, because we have many children of different abilities and disabilities. We have lots of children of different culture, and we want every child to feel good about coming to school. And by doing that, we design an environment that really promotes child engagement. So lots of children have opportunities to participate. Children have opportunities to share what they're thinking, to interact and work with other children. And as that environment is filled with visual prompts, adults to help be supportive, then we also focus on teaching children what to do and what not to do. So you may have even heard some of the adults that are working with your children use terms like use walking feet, because we're going to avoid saying don't run. We're going to instead tell them what we want them to do, and we'll teach those expectations and routines. So also focusing on the positive aspect of what we want to see them doing. So oftentimes we see children, if we say something like don't run, they run faster, right? So we want to focus more on what we really want the children to do. And we'll give you some examples also, what you can say and do in the home as well. So, and when we use the term challenging behavior, that can have a wide range of things, but for some people, challenging behavior is just maybe even having a tantrum in the grocery store, right? That can be a challenging behavior. And challenging behavior usually has a message. It can say like, I'm bored. It might say I'm sad. It may say I need some attention. So often children show this behavior when they don't have skills, when they don't have those social skills or those communication skills that they need to have more appropriate interactions. So often we see this behavior because it works for them. You know, an example that I like to give is kids that are in the checkout lane of the grocery store and they see candy, right? If they sit there and say, I would like some candy, and you say, well, we're not going to buy candy today, but then they say, I want some candy, and they keep saying, I want some candy, I want some candy. And if we then buy the candy, then the next time we go to the grocery store, it's more than likely going to happen again, because they were reinforced by that particular behavior. So it works for them. So that's also why we want to really focus on teaching children the appropriate behaviors of what we want to see. And it's usually to get out of something or to get something. So oftentimes we see behavior if it's because I want some attention, or I want that toy, or I don't want to do that action that you asked me to do. I don't want to go to bed right now. I don't have, ability to maybe say that to you in an appropriate way. So then that might be where a tantrum comes in, or sometimes screaming. So what we want to really do then, again, is focus on what are the positive things that we can set up. Could we set up a nighttime schedule or routine so that the child knows when to anticipate it's going to be time to go to bed? Or happened in my house also, when you're reading stories or something at night and they say, one more story, you finish that story, one more story, you finish that story, one more story, right? So setting up that expectation prior to the bedtime routine. We're going to read 2 stories tonight, choose which 2 stories, and then stick with that and really focus on being able to stick with that expectation. The other thing that we really try and work on with our students is giving them, we call it filling their emotional banks. So giving them those positives that we can fill those little banks with lots of descriptive praise. It might be time and attention. We can try and encourage them when it's hard. And there's lots of ways that we can fill up that emotional piggy bank. You know, even starting off the day with those positives instead of moving into giving lots of directions. So those deposits would be giving some time and attention, modeling for them what you want to see, really allowing for some wait time sometimes to respond. And then withdrawals would be more of lots of directions. So again, you know, thinking about maybe routines and still trying to fill up their banks with those positives. Good morning. Oh, let's pick what we want for breakfast today. Do you want eggs or do you want cereal? And giving them 2 choices and using some of that language with children instead of sit down, it's time for breakfast, right? Like, which happens to a lot of us, especially when we get busy in our regular morning routines or when we're just busy with things that are going on in our lives. Something that you may have heard is this idea of super Jayhawk. So hopefully some of you have heard that from your children coming home. This is a consistent message that all of the preschools in Urbandale use. The 4 main expectations for being a super Jayhawk are being safe, being kind, being responsible, and of course it's preschool. So let's make sure we have some fun too, right? Examples of that at home might be terms like you're being safe and you're holding my hand in the parking lot. You're being kind because you're helping your brother get his coat on. You're being responsible by cleaning up the toys. So you may hear kids talk about those super Jayhawks or having that terminology about being safe, being kind, being responsible. And we wanted to make sure that you had that same message so that you're familiar with those expectations and that terminology. Here's some, just again, some classroom examples. We do make them visual so that kids know and they can see those terms. We also add some visuals to, like, what does be safe look like in our classroom? Well, it looks like we're going to wash our hands. It looks like we walk in the hallway, so that we've really explained these expectations to the children so that they can model those behaviors and make sure that they're doing the appropriate behaviors when asked of them. Something else you may have heard at home might be red choices and green choices. So that's kind of a terminology that we have used from some of the background research from our National Center for Pyramid Model Innovations. And it's talking about the green choices are the good choices, right? The thumbs up choices, the things that we want to see happen. And the red choices would be the inappropriate behaviors. And those are only discussed if maybe those behaviors are happening. That's a red choice. How can we make it green? And having the visuals readily available really helps the students and the children know that, oh, I should be changing my behaviors. This is not what it looks like in blocks. And the teacher can talk with this child about that and really even model and show them what that looks like. You may also have heard about Urbie and the whole body listening. So here's a visual of that if you haven't seen it in the classroom. But that is, the whole body listening refers to the expectations during like a large group time or when they're sitting on the carpet during like a morning meeting or circle time. And that talks about what are the appropriate things that their body should be doing during the time that they're listening to the teacher or the adult that's leading the instruction. So you may have seen that as well, or heard your children referring to that. So we wanted to give you a little bit of context with that as well. You can also refer to some of this at home or in the community. For instance, you know, when you are going to the store, what might be a red choice, what are green choices? If you make those green choices when we're in the store, then when we get home, we can play a game together, right? So it's kind of also setting up those expectations prior to when that might happen. This is oftentimes the time of year where, you may go to this Target or something to go shopping. Make sure prior to going in that you let your child know that today we're shopping for this, this, and this, right? That we're not shopping for a Barbie, or we're not shopping for a video game or something, so that they know up front what the expectation is. And then if we follow that expectation when we're at the store, then we can do something at home together, like thinking about that time and attention that they can have together. And again, you may have heard about Urbies. You may have heard about celebrations at school. We got to celebrate. So this is a way, again, it's a visual for the children to see. Children can earn the Urbies for showing those positive expectations and the positive behaviors in the classroom. So by doing whole body listening, maybe the teacher says to all the children, wow, I see you all doing whole body listening. That's earned us an Urbie. And so they might put, some teachers call it a token, some people call it a coin. I think there's different terminology, but most everyone refers to it at some way as an Urbie. So then you can earn the Urbies. As you see, you can fill up the spots on our rectangle here. And then there's celebrations that happen once the Urbies are all filled in. So the visual to the right shows, it looks like that they're going to have a stinky sock party that they would earn as a celebration, which could simply mean that, like, during centers, we can take our shoes off. Now that might change, of course, with different health expectations. This might have been earlier in the year, right? But for sure, lots of kids enjoy some simple celebrations. It's not like a big party. It's really just, it can even be like fireworks in the room, where you just take some lights and do a spinner on the ceiling with one of the glow in the dark spinners. And that's the celebration. So if you're hearing that at home, these are also things that you can do at home too, when you're trying to encourage that positive behavior, especially if maybe there's been a trying time, like if bedtime is a little bit harder, maybe your child can earn an Urbie because they went to bed tonight, like they listened to the story, they brushed their teeth, they went to bed so quickly. Oh, you earned an Urbie. When we get to 2 Urbies, then we can watch a movie or something like that. So keeping it simple, but keeping those celebrations fun and something that you can do as a family or together. Here's a resource just wanted to share with you, and I'll go ahead and pull this one up. It will be in your resources at the end, but I really like this for thinking about for families, some very simple strategies that you can do to really help those positive behaviors every day. So it might be, give me some choices, and the choices, make sure that it's simple, right? And it's something you can live with. So this example is, do you want the orange bowl or the green bowl? You're still going to have cereal, but you get a choice of what the bowl is. Reminding you of the rules before. So we're going to go to the park today. Remember, when we're at the park, that you need to slide down the slide on your bottom. Or that when it's time to go, I'll give you a warning, and then it's time to go. To make sure that children really understand that transition and that expectation. Also help me know when something is going to change. And that's that transition piece. And I think there's a resource that is shared at the end that you can always go back and look at after tonight and see some different ways that you can help with some of those big transitions. This is the time of year too that there's lots of big transitions. So kids kind of need those warnings ahead of time. And this one's huge. This goes back to the deposits. Catch me being good, right? Wow, thanks so much for hanging up your backpack when you got home on the hook. I really appreciate that. That's so responsible. So anytime that you can also really connect with those expectations, that's going to really help with that message from school to home as well. And then here, like for instance, tell me exactly what to do and show me what's going to happen. So you can have some visuals, or even just talk about, here's the 3 things or the 4 things that we need to do before going to bed. So this is a resource that's available to you in those handouts that we have at the end. I'm gonna go back quickly. Thank you for. And then we'll just talk briefly about some of the social skills that are being taught in the classroom. They're also teaching those consistent routines, and you can establish those at home. They can be with visuals if possible, or again, just giving them the heads up of what are the things that are going to happen. So in the morning, these are the 5 things or the 6 things. At night, these are the 6 things. While playing a game even, especially if it's a newer activity, children need to know what are going to be the routines or what are going to be the expectations. Here's that, thinking about those transitions. Here's some tips for you as far as make sure you're giving a warning for the transition. I think especially if it's a highly preferred activity, right? That maybe even setting a timer on your phone or on the microwave or something to let them know, you can play 5 more minutes of your game and then it's time to transition to the next activity. Using different strategies. It's time to get into the car to go to the grocery store. I wonder if you can go backwards into the car today. So like giving them an activity, like I know a lot of times the teachers do action movements, can we crawl like a crab? Can we march like march to the lineup to get into line to go out into the hallway? There's lots of different transition strategies like that you can even use at home. And then making sure you're teaching those steps and they understand them. And different ways to interact with your child. Of course, listen to what they say, join and play. I think play is huge right now, that we need to really join and play with our kids and ask them open-ended questions, talk with them about their play, making even comments with them, using that positive, calm voice. Extending your conversations with children about fun things. I think a great time also to talk with your kids is in the car, right? That's that you have a captive audience. They're in their car seats. So that's a great time to sing along with some fun kid music or talk with them about different things from their day and be a little bit specific. Ask them, what was the story about that you read today at school? Instead of just how was your day? It kind of helps them think a little bit more, kind of hones in on exactly what you're asking as opposed to how was your day? And you're like, it's fine, right? You just give an answer. Tell children what to do rather than what not to do. We talked a little bit about that already. Here's just a visual for you. Okay. And as you can see, we're kind of also really making sure we're framing it in the positive. If you want blocks, you have to ask for them. Just 1 squirt of soap instead of, oh, don't use too much soap, right? So then we're really giving them exactly what we want to see them doing. And then we'll talk about those rules. And if you can establish similar rules to like Super Jayhawks, call them your family expectation or your family rules, or how you can be a Super Jayhawk at home. And there can be very simple, just couple expectations that your whole family can follow. And then those friendship skills, you can model friendship skills. We can talk about our friends, making sure we're asking them about what some of their friends' names are and what did you play with your friends during centers, and speak about Sarah might be at home right now. Maybe you miss her. You could, let's make her a card at home or something like that. So lots of different friendship skills that even at home you can model. The classrooms are all teaching these 5 skills of getting your friend's attention appropriately. So it's using their name. Also teaching on how to give a material or give a toy, how to ask for a toy appropriately. Also how to organize play so that all kids know how to play in centers. And then also how to give a compliment. And a lot of teachers model this all the time for kids, and kids are giving each other compliments, which is a great skill to have. And then we really want to focus on teaching emotions too, right? So that all of our children can express themselves in different ways with teaching emotions. Like, it looks like you're sad. Tell me why you're sad. What happened? Or how are you feeling today? And I know that I've been talking with lots and lots of different teachers that are saying that sometimes this is a little bit more difficult with mask on because we can't always read their emotions. So using visuals helps, or having some sort of feelings poster or check-in where the kids can actually, point to how they're feeling if they can't actually verbally express it. So talking about those emotional words at home is another great way that you can make that connection with school. Talking about being excited, talking about maybe even when you're angry and what can you do about that when you're angry. And then those problem solvings too. So what are some ways that we can solve problems as opposed to like punishing? And we can also talk about what is appropriate for those behaviors. So we have a problem, what should we do about it? And really have your child kind of talk with you about what can we do with some of those problems. The teachers in the classrooms are also working with their children on solving problems. Usually it's during kind of naturally occurring times during the day. It might be during play, centers, maybe it's outside, but even really trying to have the kids problem solve with each other as opposed to an adult coming in and solving the problems for them. And then really focusing on teaching self-regulation skills. This is great for both kids and adults, right? We need to know how we can calm ourselves down. So whether it's a simple breathing technique, whether it's most of the classrooms, I think maybe even all the classrooms have a place in the classroom that's kind of a calm spot where they can go when they're feeling maybe anxious or feeling a little bit upset. They can go to the calm spot. They can do a couple strategies. One is smell and blow, where you can smell the flowers and blow the pinwheel, and use that kind of visual with kids. But different breathing techniques really can help them calm down as well. So anytime you can do some of this at home, it's great for adults to model it for kids as well. So if we can model those strategies, that's even better. And then here, our last, look at that, 7:01. I was really watching my time, trying not to talk too fast, but I wanted to share with you, here are some excellent resources for you as families that can access. I know that the teachers have been sending home some of the backpack connections, which is the last resource here. But there is an excellent one-page resource that talks about how can I set up a calm area at home, or how can I teach emotions at home? And then there's also some here visuals for transitions and visuals for routines and schedules and transitions as well. So excellent resources readily available to you. But I think right now, because of time as well, we'll just kind of pause and stop and see if there's any questions, or if there's any comments that anyone would like to make. I don't know if there was anything in the chat or.
There are no questions in the chat.
Okay.
So feel free, if you have a question, to put it in the chat.
And if there's, I know the teachers are on with us too. So if there's any of the teachers that want to add anything, I know it was a kind of a brief overview.
There's one comment that says, would love to dig into these resources further. Can you send a link to the presentation so we can click into these? Thank you. Yes, I sent out the reminder this week through that newsletter. There are these same links are embedded into that, and the presentation is. So if you did not get that, please send the teacher an email or send me an email.
So it looks like the chat is actually really thanking well deserved to the teachers and the time that they are taking with the students. And that social emotional learning is really so important. And that is also why we're focusing on it so much in the classrooms. And hopefully you're hearing some of your kids come home and talk about some of the things that we mentioned tonight. We really appreciate everyone joining us. I know it was just kind of a short amount of time, but we didn't want to take too much out of your evening. I don't know, Ashley, if there's anything else. There's a question about the channel to provide feedback on these methods. I think, yeah, if you want to email maybe Ashley or one of your teachers, I'm sure that they would be also willing to help with providing some feedback as well.
Yes. I just want to thank everyone for that joined us tonight, and a reminder that if you go through the resources or you think of any more questions, perfect time would be to answer next week at parent-teacher conferences. Also, we'll be sending out a survey for families to fill out next week, just to get feedback on how things are going this year. And it'll give you an additional area to input any questions there. Or if you give us any ideas of any additional resources or trainings in the future that you would like us to possibly give via Zoom, like we did tonight. I mentioned in the last year when we did a family night like this, we had activities for kids, and we made the first part of it like a pizza party, and it was a fun night. So unfortunately, we weren't able to do that this year. But the teachers are going to schedule a fun night for families that'll be virtual next month, and it will be just with your classroom. So parents and kids will be invited, and it'll be just a fun night to celebrate all the awesome things the kids are doing in the classroom this year. And the one last thing that I wanted to mention, I just want to thank everyone for all of your hard work this year and hanging in there with us and working so hard to help us keep, the kids safe. I want to emphasize that masks are not required for preschoolers, but we highly recommend them. And the students that are wearing them at school are doing an excellent job, and things seem to be going well. So please, I encourage you, if you can, send your child with a mask, or if you would like them to wear one and maybe they haven't been, let us know if you need help getting an extra mask for them at school. We can help you find one of those too. So I just want to encourage you right now, things have been going really great in the classrooms up to this point. And people have been, staying healthy, and we're doing lots of great things in all the classrooms. But just right now, with the current state in our community and the more of this, the spread going on, that we recommend that you do send masks with your students if possible. So thank you, everyone. And please don't hesitate to email me or the teachers if you have any additional questions. So thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night.
Stop sharing.